How do you speak with confidence without crossing the line into rudeness? I'm going to jump straight into it in this episode. No long build-up. You already know where you are. This is the Jefferson Fisher podcast. Before we begin, two quick things. First, if you're thinking about a meaningful gift this season, give someone the gift of better communication. My book, The Next Conversation, is available through the links. Second, the companion workbook is also out. I've spent a lot of time making it practical and usable, something you can actually apply alongside the book in real conversations. Now let's talk about how to sound assertive without sounding rude. That alone is a question I get more than almost anything else. Assertiveness exists on a spectrum. On one end, you have aggression. On the other end, you have passivity. Aggression communicates, I don't respect you. Passivity communicates, I don't respect myself. Assertiveness lives in the middle. It says, I respect you and I respect myself at the same time. That's the balance we're aiming for. And we're going to walk through it clearly. Number one, tone. Tone plays an enormous role in assertiveness. Honestly, it's almost everything. If I had to put a number on it, tone accounts for the vast majority of how assertive you sound. The best way to understand tone is through music. Picture a piano in your mind. Think about the keys right in the middle. Now imagine barely touching them. The sound is soft, almost uncertain. You have to lean in to hear it. That's passive communication. Now imagine slamming your hands down on the keys. It's loud, startling, uncomfortable. That's aggressive communication. Then there's something in between, controlled, intentional, steady. Think about different types of music. Heavy rock with loud chords and crashing cymbals feels aggressive. Smooth jazz or soft instrumental music feels calm and grounded. The notes themselves may not change much, but the delivery completely changes how it lands. Your voice works the same way. If someone sounds aggressive, you feel it immediately. If someone sounds passive, you sense that too. The difference comes down to the shape of the tone. Here's what to listen for, the curve. When you want to sound more assertive, your voice starts neutral and then settles downward at the end of the sentence. It doesn't shoot up. It doesn't trail off. It lands. Think about asking someone to pass the salt. Compare these two. Can you pass the salt? Versus, can you pass the salt? Same words, totally different message. When your tone rises at the end, it sounds uncertain, like you're asking permission or questioning yourself. When your tone drops, it creates finality. It sounds grounded. A lot of people speak with an upward inflection without realizing it. Their sentences lift at the end, making everything sound like a question. It leaves listeners unsure whether the thought is finished or still searching for approval. Tone determines that. What's fascinating is that the words don't need to change at all. Take a single word like okay. Say it different ways and it can mean agreement, frustration, dismissal, or reassurance. Same word. Different tone. Entirely different meaning. This is especially important in text where tone is stripped away. Without vocal cues, misunderstandings multiply. If you want to sound more assertive, train yourself to bring your tone down at the end of your sentences. You don't need a deep voice to do this. Even a higher-pitched voice can land firmly. The key is direction, not pitch. Think of it as replacing question marks with periods. There's a big difference between saying, welcome to the Jefferson Fisher podcast, and welcome to the Jefferson Fisher podcast. One sounds unsure. The other sounds intentional. End your sentences. Let them land. Now let's move to number two, how you frame your sentence. Assertive communication benefits from what I call road mapping. That means telling the listener where you're going before you take them there. One of the most effective ways to do this is by starting with I need. For example, if you're about to have a difficult conversation at work, you might begin with I need to tell you something important, or I need to talk with you about a decision we have to make. Notice what that does. You're not being harsh. You're not being disrespectful. You're simply stating your intention clearly. Compare that with a scattered approach. So I was thinking maybe we could talk about something, but it's not a big deal. And if now's not a good time, that's fine. That version lacks direction. It weakens the message before even starts. Now listen to this instead. I need to be honest with you, or I need to have a difficult conversation with you, or you're not going to like what I'm about to say. That's direct. That's respectful. That's assertive. Beginning with, I need places responsibility on you. It's not an attack. It's not a demand. It's clarity. When you say I need, you're stepping forward without aggression. You're stating your position without apologizing for existing. If you're thinking about a conversation you've been avoiding, try starting it this way. Keep it simple. I need to tell you something. That alone changes the tone of the entire interaction. Now let's talk about number 3, and this one surprises a lot of people. Assertiveness is about subtraction, not force. Aggression adds pressure. Assertiveness removes clutter. Being assertive doesn't mean doing more. It means doing less, fewer explanations, fewer apologies, fewer justifications, less defensiveness. When people over-explain, they think they're being clearer. In reality, they're diluting their message. Think about food. If you over-season a meal, you don't taste the ingredients anymore. All you taste is salt. Conversation works the same way. If you overload your sentences with sarcasm, profanity, filler words, or passive-aggressive language, people stop hearing the message and only notice the seasoning. The point gets lost. Assertiveness strips things down to what matters. It leaves what is clean, kind, direct, and true. That means removing excessive apologies. It means letting go of unnecessary backstory. It means resisting the urge to justify every statement. One small but powerful adjustment: limit adverbs, word, like really, basically, literally, just obviously and clearly soften your message more than you realize. Each one waters down what you're trying to say. Imagine your words as a drink. Every adverb is another ice cube. Eventually, the flavor disappears. Assertive language is served straight. No dilution. When you subtract instead of add, people listen more closely. Your words carry weight. Your message becomes easier to receive, not harder. So let's bring it all together. First, tone. Let your voice settle downward. End your sentences with intention. Second, frame your message. Use I need to clearly signal where the conversation is going. Third, subtract. Remove over-explain. ING, over-apologizing, and unnecessary filler. Say less, but say it cleanly. That's how you communicate assertively without sounding rude. And here's the part most people don't expect. Once you've adjusted your tone, once you've framed your sentences clearly, and once you've removed the excess, something interesting happens. People stop interrupting you. They stop pushing back immediately. They stop testing you as much. Not because you're louder, not because you're intimidating, but because your communication no longer invites negotiation. Where none is needed, a lot of people think assertiveness is about winning. It's not. Assertiveness is about stability. It's about being steady enough that others feel the ground under the conversation. And stability is incredibly disarming. When someone speaks calmly, clearly, and without unnecessary explanation, the brain of the listener relaxes. There's no chaos to manage, no emotional puzzle to solve, no hidden agenda to decode. Your words feel trustworthy. That's why assertiveness doesn't require intensity. In fact, intensity often works against you. If you're speaking quickly, fill in silence, or racing to get your point across, you're signaling nervousness. Even if your words are correct, your delivery tells a different story. Assertive communication slows down. It creates space between sentences. It allows silence to exist without panic. It lets the other person absorb what you said without immediately chasing reassurance. Silence is not weakness. Silence is often the strongest punctuation you can use. Most people rush to fill silence because they're afraid of how it looks. Assertive people let silence do its work. They understand that clarity doesn't need to be chased if you say something important, and immediately start explaining it again in a different way. You're unintentionally telling the other person, I'm not confident this was enough. Say it once. Let it land. Another subtle but powerful shift is removing emotional bait from your delivery. This means not asking questions you don't actually want answers to, not saying things like, does that make sense? Or is that okay? when you're not seeking permission. Those phrases hand control away. Instead, make statements, calm statements, respectful statements. For example, instead of saying, "Would it be okay if we talked about this later?" you can say, "Let's talk about this later." Same message, completely different posture. Assertiveness doesn't need to justify itself. And here's something else that matters more than people realize: facial expression and posture. Your voice might be steady, but if your body is apologizing, the message won't match. Assertiveness aligns your words, tone, and presence. That doesn't mean stiff. That doesn't mean cold. It means relaxed shoulders, still hands, neutral expression, no nervous smiling to soften the message, no shrinking while speaking. You're not performing. You're communicating. One of the most common mistakes people make when trying to be assertive is overcorrecting. They swing too far and become blunt, sharp, or dismissive. That's not assertiveness. That's defense wearing confidence. True assertiveness remains respectful even when it's firm. You can say no without explaining yourself into exhaustion. You can disagree without raising your voice. You can hold a boundary without attacking someone else's character. That's maturity in communication. And here's a simple test to know. If you're being assertive or aggressive, ask yourself whether your words leave room for dignity. Not agreement, dignity. Assertive communication allows the other person to save face, even when the answer is no. Aggressive communication corners them. If your words back someone into a wall, expect resistance. If your words hold steady without pushing, expect cooperation. This also applies to how you receive responses. Assertive people don't overreact to disagreement. They don't rush to defend every point. They don't interpret questions as threats. They listen without collapsing and respond without escalating. That balance is what earns respect over time. Another key shift is dropping the need to be liked. In the moment, assertiveness prioritizes clarity over comfort. That doesn't mean being unkind. It means accepting that discomfort is sometimes part of honest communication. If your goal is to keep everyone comfortable at all times, you will always sacrifice yourself in the conversation. If your goal is clarity with respect, discomfort becomes temporary instead of permanent. People may not always like what you say, but they will trust how you say it. And trust lasts longer than approval. One last adjustment that changes everything. Stop narrating your emotions. You don't need to announce how nervous you are. You don't need to explain that this is hard for you every time. You don't need to pre-apologize for having a thought. Your emotions are valid, but they don't always need airtime. Assertiveness allows emotions to exist without letting them drive the message. You can feel nervous and still speak steadily. You can feel uncertain and still communicate clearly. You can feel empathetic without softening your boundary. That's strength with grace. So if you're practicing this, start small. Lower your tone at the end of one sentence. Today, begin one conversation with "I need to tell you something." Remove one unnecessary explanation and see what happens. You don't need to change who you are. You're not becoming someone else. You're simply removing the habits that dilute your voice. And when your voice becomes clear, people listen. That's assertiveness, calm, direct, respectful, and grounded without ever sounding rude.